Better? Okay, thank you.
Excellent. Director Greenhaven, you can hear us now?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, with that in mind, we'll move on to the next step in here. Are there any objections to approving the agenda and minutes as presented? Hearing none, the agenda and minutes are approved as presented. We will now move out of our business meeting format and into our workshop format to discuss a special education update from Dr. Clifford. Just as a note, this will be a presentation, and then there will be an opportunity for comments and questions afterwards. So please write down things that you want to talk about on this item on the agenda, and we'll get to that at the end of the presentation. Sorry, Dr. Clifford and Principal Phillips. Okay, over to you. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yeah, we're going to move over here because we're going to present like workshop style. I am going to hand out these sticky notes. And if you have questions or concerns, we're going to call it a parking lot. You can write them on here, and then we can decide if we need to, if we have time and if it makes sense to answer them in this session, or if it's student specific. And if it's a situation specific, then we can follow up with you afterwards. Because really this is about doing an overarching view and information. So you can pull a couple of these off. You're good. Would you like some sticky notes? Okay. You've got, okay, so you can share. So they, and today is kind of like an overarching view of special ed in the district. This is high level and some specific information, but we have a lot more work to do this year to really unpack. And we're going to talk about that at the end, about some next steps that we're going to take to continue to understand our current landscape around special ed and the services that we're providing to students and the outcomes, and then in our engagement with families and community and how we're supporting staff. But we're also going to, and then that will define our next work and identify where, our strengths. But we'll talk about that at the very end. So let's see if this clicker works. It helps if I turn it on. And so just wanted to touch on, this actually hits on a couple of board goals because we're going to talk about an advisory council. So there's a way for two-way communication with board through that venue. But we wanted to focus on this goal in particular. And then it does hit on, oops, okay, I have to hold it at a certain place. But it does, we also are hitting on every single area of our goals within our district. Specifically, the logistics, because of the superintendent entry plan, is about, there's some engagement pieces there and understanding our program. So today, you're going to get a high-level overview of, and kind of a special ed at a glance in South Whigby School District. And again, this is not time to work through, we're not going to talk about student-specific issues. This is really high-level programming and information about the program. And we also want to be responsive. So if you have specific student issues, please use those sticky notes, or we can follow up with you after. The purpose of this session is to review demographics, do kind of a department and program update. We're going to do a quick overview, kind of like a special ed 101 on process and timeline, and then current work and next steps. And then at the end, we'll do notice and wonderings. So that's where we can talk about questions and notice and wonderings, questions that are high about the program and overview. All right, so I think this is you.
Christy, I gave myself a little cheat sheet and I put a little asterisk on the slides that are mine, but this is blocking it. Is it possible to move that? Okay, I'm going to go off memory. We'll be flexible. We're collaborative. If you need to move, please feel free to. It can be awkward. These are our enrollment trends for the past 5 years for students that qualify in special education. So 5 years ago, October count 2021. You can notice our total enrollment trend as well with our population of students that are qualifying. The preschool ITK, excuse me, which started 5 years ago. K through 12 students that qualify for an IEP, also known as an individual education plan. at the K-12 level, and then our total. So our percentage is pretty steady and at the average overall compared to the national average of students being served in special education in a TK-12 setting. So this year we have a little jump in our enrollment, which we know, and we're at 14% of students in the TK to 12 age being served on an IEP. We like a good way to show data and show an example. So this is a pie chart that shows the breakdown of where they're being served and the type of services. So there's a little key down here. Dark navy blue is preschool ITK. That's 3 and 4 year olds. 1% of our students are being served at that grade level and in that model. Orange is resource room. A resource room is the most commonly served population of students. 75% of our students in the South Whitby School District qualify for a resource room, and we'll talk about the percentage of how you might be determined in that setting. It's okay. Green is intensive services. The language around this is changing. You might have heard it be called life skills before, and we're changing it to intensive supports because everyone's learning life skills. So it's kind of an antiquated term. So intensive support, about 10% of our population being served in that area. And then some students qualify in communication with a speech language pathologist or motor only, either with an occupational therapist or a physical therapist. And about 11% of students only qualify in that area.
And when we look at this, special ed has a continuum of service delivery model. And these are talking about the different service delivery models. And as Ms. Phillips, who is not only the middle school principal and director of curriculum, but also director of special ed, shared the percentage of students that are receiving services in one of those continuum of our service delivery models.
And in a later slide, we'll talk about at each building level, what that might look like with more specificity. Are you loving that? Something called the LRE, or least restrictive environment, is a percentage that we're looking at to have students appropriately be with gen ed peers, general education peers. So the red line in each spot, and I'll introduce each. Students spending 80 to 100% in the general education environment. The red line is our target. And we're back for the last 4 years. The state of Washington's a little slow to produce newer data, so we won't see next year's for a little bit. So this last year, 22-23, which is our most recent, we were below that target of 61% of students were with their gen ed peers 80 to 100% of their day. The next one, I'll go kind of in order by percentage. Students spending 40 to 79% in the gen ed environment. This is a student getting maybe a more intensive amount of special education services or qualifying in multiple areas. So in 2022-23, we were about 29%. And that 0 to 39%, that's a student in that intensive support program needing a lot of special education services. So still gaining access, but not as much. We're still below that target line. And every student's going to be different, and that continuum might change based off their needs or progress or situation that might change throughout the year. And then homeschool, home hospitalization, not represented.
And it's important to note that some of these lines we want to be above the target and some of the lines we want to be below. And as Ms. Phillips mentioned, the state has about 18, there might be more, there might be less, but 18 indicators, some that are compliance indicators and some that are just instructional indicators around special ed. And so this is one of the indicators that they provide us, and it's a state performance, a profile of the district. And so this is our most recent profile. We get one every year. And then, so the other thing that's important to look at is, our goal is to support students graduating and to try to get as many students to graduate on time as possible. And a 4-year graduation rate. We wanted to do a comparison of our students with disabilities in the school district with students with disabilities in the state. So you can see that for the most part, we have been performing outperforming the state. And we always want to strive to continue to increase our graduation rate for all students, including students with disabilities. But this gives you just a little bit of a picture and insight. This came from the OSPI state report card. And so this was we're waiting for the most recent data that hasn't been published from OSPI for the last component. Is this me or you? Okay. So post-school outcomes, a year after students leave us, we are responsible for doing surveys of all of the students that have graduated and left us. Students with disabilities specifically. And we have a number of questions that we have. And when we share this with the state wants to see what our response rate is. So this right here is just showing the response rate over time. I think it's a 70% response rate. So we have been surpassing the response rate. So we've been meeting expectation in that response rate for responding to the surveys. And then the next one, in that survey, we're asking families and students a year after they leave and graduate from South Whidbey School District and all school districts here in Washington State, if they're not engaged, if they are in higher education, participating in higher education, competitive employment, other education, or other employment. And so this just kind of gives you a picture of how our students are responding to this. And what I want to name is that oftentimes districts are working really hard to increase their percentage of students participating in higher ed or competitive employment. And we're doing pretty good. So it doesn't mean that we still want to keep supporting those post-secondary outcomes and when students leave us, supporting them in that transition to their next step in their future. But this is a good pieces of information to know how our students are doing and what we continue to do to support them as they transition and how we're supporting them through into college or employment. And then I shared with you that we have this state performance profile, and I said that there's some of those have compliance indicators, and there's a number of those compliance indicators that then the state will determine if we've met or not met those compliance indicators. And the state has a 4-level determination rating. I call it a special ed report card. They just called it a determination. And every single year, the state tells us if we've got a level 1 or level 2, level 3, level 4. Level 1 is meeting compliance. So that's the highest level. Level 4 is where the state's coming in and taking over and supporting you. And so we just recently got our determination level and we came out as a level 1. And this is a good thing to celebrate. And I want to share that sometimes there's a difference between an experience of meeting compliance requirements and families having navigating and working through a system. And so while we're level 1, and many families are probably having a good experience, and this may resonate, compliance and meeting a checkbox doesn't always mean that that families still may have questions and concerns related to their services. So I want to recognize that this is a really good thing. And it doesn't mean that we're sitting on our laurels. We're recognizing that we still have work to do. And we also know that there's some things that are beyond compliance. So that we are continuing to work on.
We wanted to give kind of personalize it a little bit to share the names and the idea of what a day-to-day program might look like for some of the students in our schools. This is an overview. A couple weeks ago, we had a special education family night, so this might look familiar. An idea for people to understand the flow chart and staffing of how our special education program works. So Dr. Clifford, myself, and then we have people directly under me would be called someone like a teacher on special assignment or a special education TOSA. This person works to represent kind of the go-between or communicator with families, teachers, to help understand challenges and needs in special education. We have one right now that works 2.5 days a week at the elementary school and then serves as a speech language pathologist the other half of the week at the middle high school. Under principals are the special education staff. That is the certified special education teacher, specialist. An OT is an occupational therapist. PT is a physical therapist. SLP speech language pathologist, a school psychologist, and paraeducators. There's a lot on this, and it's pulled right from our website. So if you go to our district website under special education, it can give you a more broad idea of programmatic overview. On the left are our certified staff teacher names. These are the people working day to day with all of our students who qualify for special education. And we've broken our programs down at this building level. TK stands for transitional kindergarten through second grade. Miss Savannah Young serves that population. Missy Pritchett serves second through fifth grade. Mr. Henderson serves third through fifth. And then we have those people that are identified as specialists, depending on if a student qualifies. For example, for speech or communication, they would work with Mr. Fry for speech language pathology. As we've taken on ITK or transitional kindergarten, it serves 3 to 5 year olds with a wide range of developmental delays. Communication, adaptive, and social skills tends to be a target, but it's a continuum of support depending on a student's needs. The resource model, where it showed, I think, 74% of our entire population of students that are in special education. It's a service delivery model that serves students on an IEP. They might come to the resource room for their specially designed instruction. So if they qualify for reading, they might come daily for 30 to 45 minutes for specially designed instruction for their reading needs with their special education team and spend the majority of their day with their general education peers. That intensive support is more high quality instruction for students who maybe qualify for multiple areas of support or need, from academics to social emotional needs, behavioral, or some adaptive skills that might support them in their lifespan development, including communication, functional, and then some independent skills for that daily living. In addition, we added in the last couple years a BCBA, or a board certified behavioral analyst. It's kind of a trend you'll start to see in more school districts. Manya works with our team as a behavioral expert, making observations, working with teams and families to implement behavioral supports for allow students to be amongst their peers. The middle school, as they transition from TK to 5 to 6 through 8, we have a resource model and an intensive support program. And students are often, you might work with Ms. Jones and Ms. Maddox. So it's even if they have a case manager for their IEP, they might work with more than one special education teacher. That goes for elementary, but also middle and even high school. So the team here looks pretty similar. And intensive support is working a lot collaboratively with gen ed teachers, because students are transitioning to 6 class periods a day. And a lot of students tend to really enjoy that and have a lot of regular communication and contact with their resource room teacher or intensive support teacher. The high school has the same resource model, intensive support, formerly known as life skills, and then transition. So students can qualify for 18 to 22-year-olds can qualify for transition services, focuses on helping students build essential skills, communication, functional, independence, and adaptive skills so that they can go off and have a meaningful job or opportunity within our community. So you might see our students utilizing public transit, working in businesses. We're always looking to team up with businesses or people to give our students jobs and skills as they're transitioning to the workforce or to daily life. So this is a really fun opportunity where you see students coming and participating in what maybe a future job might look like for them. And that's run by Mr. Hudson.
Okay, so the next 3 slides just is going to paint a real quick picture of our special ed timelines and the process. So if anybody, so it can be a family member, a staff member, even sometimes community members or physicians, or a daycare provider, before after school provider, if anybody suspects a student of having a disability, they can make a referral, and a special ed referral comes to the district, and this is unfortunate, but we will have this posted. This is 25 school days, and this matters because the date that we receive the referral, sometimes the referrals are dated a different date, but it's the date that the district receives the referral starts the timeline. And during that process, we have a team that comes together and will compile a lot of information, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but the team is the parent, depending on the age level, potentially the student, administrator or designee, the general ed and special ed teacher, related service provider. Sometimes a district administrator participates, but often not. And then an interpreter if a family needs a sign language or a language interpreter. In this process, there is a draft referral report. The team will review all of the information and then decide whether it makes sense to, based on data and based on criteria, if it makes a decision whether we're going to move forward with an evaluation or not. And then after each of these things, you're having the same problem I had. After each of these steps, you'll see that there's a prior written notice where we document the notice of action of the decisions that were made during that meeting. And then every single step, there's a thing called procedural safeguards. You will hear from families that they get this or they just leave it on the table. It's a long, chunky document that explains their rights and then the laws. And so we are required to provide those to families every single time we meet with them. During the referral process, oh, can we go back one more? We are looking at the pre-referral interventions, what's happening in the general education, the number and type and length of interventions, and the fidelity and student background, academic, behavioral, medical, depending on what the referral is for, and may look at all those things. We also want to make sure that we're acknowledging and identifying if there were cultural factors, so that we're not identifying students based on that we're making sure that a cultural factor is not creating an identification or over-identification. And then we're also making sure that there's suspected disability. We're making that decision whether to evaluate or not, and then schedule a follow-up meeting. And at that point, that follow-up meeting will create an assessment plan if we decide to move forward, and then get consent for that assessment plan. And it has to be done in 25 school days. The next step is if we said yes, if the team says yes to an evaluation, you'll see that there's a very similar team member. We have to have, there's a school psychologist because we're having the school psychologist as a core part of the evaluation process. And they're making sure that we do as part of the testing for best academic and behavioral testing. And assessments. A draft report is provided and should be provided ahead of time. At the end of the meeting, there's again a prior written notice and the procedural safeguards. During the referral timeline and process, the evaluation, there's 3 things that a student that has to be in place for a student to become eligible. So they have to have a disability. That's why there's an X next to 3 of these things under considerations. They have to have a disability category or through the evaluation process. There has to be a determined adverse educational impact, and they have to require specially designed instruction to help them move forward. So those 3 things. So you can have students that have a disability and have an adverse educational impact, but they don't require specially designed instruction. And so those students would not be eligible for special ed services. They might be eligible for other services, but not special ed. And so those 3 things are critical. We also are getting background information, and you're getting information from the areas of those assessment types and then the summary from the assessments. And that has to happen in 35 school days. So from the date that we get the initial consent from the assessment, we need to start that timeline starts. And every 3 years this happens. And then the final phase to this, but these are ongoing and it happens throughout the lifetime of a student who has an IEP. We have an IEP. This is Individual Education Program. We hold these IEP meetings because this is the student's plan. This is the plan that we have to making sure that we're creating that specially designed instruction, and we're making decisions on how we support students to implement their programs. And services to support their needs. And the meeting requires a parent, sometimes when they're older, 16 or older, we'd like to have students there, an administrator or designee from the school, a gen ed and a special education teacher, and then if they're eligible for related services, then a related service provider needs to be there. District administrators sometimes attend, and an interpreter will be provided as needed based on the family's needs. And then we tried to make sure that we have a draft IEP. Again, prior notice and procedural safeguards. This is the dry part of the story, so thank you for hanging in there. And then again, you'll see that there's a number of things we want to make sure that, and it comes right from the evaluation, that you get the current student's current present level of performance. And then when you do it the next year, you're updating the IEP to demonstrate and update the current present levels of performance. How are they doing? And then we include annual goals and progress monitoring so that we can monitor the progress of those goals throughout the year and how students are making progress and gains. We make decisions on what accommodations and modifications need to be happening in the school setting. For students 16 and older, we have a transition plan that supports what life is going to happen after school when they graduate. And then the test participation, service matrix minutes, and that's a big thing because we say, okay, here are the goals. This is the amount of time you need for the different areas of eligibility and and if you have related service providers, and then the location of those services. So that ties back into that least restrictive environment. And least restrictive environment also gets calculated through the service matrix. And also we consider if students require transportation to access services. Extended school year services is something that the team also has to make decisions on. And then if this is the first time a student has an IEP, we have to get consent from parents before moving forward, or families before moving forward. And the other two were school days. This is 30 calendar days that we have to complete this process. And then we do this annually. And then if something comes up where the team says we need to make adjustments, or the family said, I have questions, or we have new information, then we can we can have an IEP meeting outside of the annual IEP meeting. I think you might be next.
Current work and next steps. Our team, including certified teachers, those related services, paraeducators, are all working collaboratively to enhance, learn more skills and strategies to support students with disabilities. So some of the trainings we have ongoing, some are new, and what are we doing to build upon them? A newer one to us, but we've had our third cohort of people go to what is called Life Skills Crisis Intervention. It's a program through Overlake School. We've sent 3 cohorts of staff members that are now certified in their Tier 3 intervention program. It's an intensive week-long 40-hour training in the summer. So we send staff down to Bellevue throughout the summer to participate in this 40-hour intensive training. They get certified. They have to take a test to help. And what it does is they gain skills to learn about interventions and supports to have students and staff members safe at all times. And then we're in our second year as a Tier 1 approach for ITK through 12th grade staff are working with that team as well to support students' trauma-informed practices, de-escalation, and communication strategies to work with students of disabilities. Right response training is required for anyone that works with special education students. It focuses on how to safely prevent, de-escalate, and respond to challenging behaviors through trauma-informed practices. We have 2 trainings coming up next week while students are either at conferences. A lot of those staff members will be engaging in that process. We sent half of our case managers in October to a training up through our ESD that's teaching them standards-based IEPs. So aligning them to standards-based so that students in their general education curriculum are aligned. Amplify. When we adopted Amplify, we looked at M-Class as a Tier 3 intervention. They've updated some things. They've made it more accessible through technology as well. So we're looking at diving deeper into utilizing M-Class and how it can support our students with their reading and writing development. And then adding on our board certified behavior analyst, her name is Manya. She does para-focused behavior trainings working with staff members that are working with students with behavioral needs. Implementation of BIPs. You say, what's a BIP? It stands for Behavioral Intervention Plan. Some students have specific needs and it helps the team to respond accordingly in order to support the students and their needs. And then of course, continuous improvement for safer student outcomes. Dr. Clifford, I think it was like day 1.5, applied for a newer grant, reducing restraint and eliminating isolation. So what we're doing is we're working with the state. Our amazing special education secretary, Angie Hudkins, is helping along with this. So we qualified to be a pilot site district We're looking at targeting professional development, a lot of what we already are doing, and looking at other ones to support training for staff to support students so that restraint and then eliminating isolation for students can be supported. Some of what the funding can help to do for us, pay for professional development and then a district-wide consultation and support on looking at what's working now and then ways to continue to support to reduce and eliminate those interactions. Yep. Will you pass these out? Thank you. November 4th, we had a family night. I think I'm going to go off the top of my head. I think we had roughly 30 participants representing around 15 students. And we came together in this room. We had done a pre-survey asking families of students in special education, what are top topics you want to talk about with us? So we drafted 9 collectively. A document going around is going to do a lot better than our handwriting can. So we did kind of a jigsaw rotation with people, and we were looking at, based off of these topics, what are some things you recognize as a strength that's working? And what are some opportunities for us as a district? There were some small things that, oh, that's something we can implement or review pretty quickly. Then there's some bigger picture things that we have some time that we need to prioritize what needs our most immediate attention and where we're going to go from that. Dr. Clifford has copies. It's a lot easier to see it typed up versus our handwriting as we were going through that. Link there is also the presentation from that night on November 4th. And based off what you got, and that's just a note to myself, so ignore that second part. We're going to ask you to take a few minutes, review some noticings and wonders that you had based off of the feedback that we got, based off of those 9 topics, some of the strengths, and then some of the opportunities that families that came and participated and engaged in these hard conversations with us brought up. So we'll give you a few minutes to review that, and then we'll just hear from you and see what you say.
Thank you. And for those of you who are following along on Zoom, we don't have handouts for you. I apologize.
Yep.
We should be able to link one shortly. If you do have comments or questions when the time comes, please use the Q&A function and type in your name and general location, just the community that you live in, and then your question or comment, and we'll get it into the discussion. Please don't just put I agree or I disagree or something like that, because we will likely have moved on from what you are agreeing or disagreeing with by the time we get to it. Thank you.
And these were quickly noted while people were talking. So there might be some like not full sentences, and it was just specific, like really truly taken right from the notes. All right, I'm going to hand this back to Ms. Phillips in a second, but I do want to state that when we did invitations, we had a form that people could fill out to notify us if they were coming and if they needed childcare and if they had specific topics, and we had some listed, and then an option for fill-in. And so these topics were a summary based on the topics that came in, and there was about 11 submissions. And then we did a kind of a gallery walk or a cafe where they could enter. They rotated across a couple of those different sections. And so I'm going to hand it back to Ms. Phillips.
I know it's kind of hard to grab that and be able to pull some things out, but just after skimming it, curious what maybe stands out to you right away. Our team is looking at the same time doing it, but it's always nice to hear from you the perspective of what you're seeing and what's standing out.
I think one noticing that I have is as I'm looking at the common themes and the opportunities for growth, I come with the privilege of having worked in large I-5 districts in this particular subject area. And so kind of knowing and seeing the differences between large district supports and small district supports. A wonder I have is how many of these concerns, if we go to kind of the root, has to do with we're asking staff to be everything. You know, for example, we're asking a staff member to be both a TOSA and an SLP. And so you, Ms. Phillips, are both a principal, the director of curriculum, and the director of special ed. Something I see is how many of these opportunities for growth are rooted in people being stretched too thin, and then inevitably communication loops are going to get dropped. I see, you know, responses from humans who have children that they love and care deeply about. And I'm not saying that children should be casualties of inadequate funding systems, but the end result is that students are impacted by inadequate funding systems, where we're asking people to do 15 jobs in one day and take care of a lot of kids. Those are my thoughts.
I noticed as you were saying that there are quite a number of these that seem like to a skim easy fixes, and then a bunch of them that are going to take a great deal more close attention. So my wondering is, should we shift some of the pillars around in the district goals to accommodate more attention from you and the administrators on special education? Because it seems to be something that needs that attention sooner rather than later.
Good question. Good wonder.
I think there are a lot of people in the room with more expertise than I, so I just want to make a sort of a global observation, which is that systemic improvements that address the people least served usually serve everyone better. So a heightened attention and resourcing of excellent special education provision would very likely have positive impact on our general education programming too.
One of my noticings as I was looking through this list is that there is a call for increased community. And especially with folks who are new to special ed, how do they navigate? Where do they start? Where is Castle Park? I saw it in here. And so my curiosity, I think, lies in, you know, as we think about next action steps, how do we start to aggregate what can be built within the community? Just like when Ms. Phillips was talking about, you know, some of our kiddos go down to local businesses and start to learn the craft of customer service and, you know, build some skills in the community. So how do we continue to leverage the community actions that already exist and build that community element into the work?
I think I would also just add that a lot of the themes are common themes that you will find in any district. Like if we look at special ed in any district, you're going to see the same themes coming up. And so not that we dismiss the concerns in any way, shape, or form, but I think there's also a recognition that this is not a unique to South Whidbey problem, that this is a special education as a whole problem, and that we get to be one part of looking at how we solve that. But if you go to Coopville, you'll see the same concerns. If you go to Oak Harbor, you'll go see the same concerns. You go to Everett, you see the same concerns. Mukilteo, you see the same concerns. Seattle, same concerns. Renton, I mean, Spokane, we don't just have to stay I-5. So I think like that's also something to recognize, is that we have other districts that we can lean into who maybe have found positive ways of addressing some of these, learn from them. And then we could also build on our strengths and share that with other districts as well.
I do want to specifically call in our students if they've spotted anything in particular, but I also want to say something so that they have time to think about that if they do have anything they want to add in. One thing I noticed was a lot of this was timing related. Getting things coming in quickly enough, or they were coming in quickly enough, or we need it more frequently, or whatever side of the equation it was on, a lot of it was on timing. I did have a question related to that on the whole process. Based on the presentation, it seems like the initial intake process is up to 60 school days plus 30 calendar days.
That's correct.
And I just wanted to make sure those were all stacking on top of them, not starting at one starts at the end of the one before it, rather than them all starting at the same time.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep. And and for the evaluation, it depends on when we get the signature for the assessment plan and consent to move forward. And for yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so a lot of that will be, and those are maximum lengths. And so a lot of it is fulfilling the bureaucracy required in order to get services for a student.
Yes. And I think to go back to staffing, and this is a thing that you have a caseload, and a school psychologist is not just doing one evaluation. There might be multiple coming in at the same time. So, and kind of processing those. And then there's other team members that are a part of that process too.
And then they're also managing all of the reevals and all of the IEPs. So there's multiple cycles that are happening at one time. So you might have a school psychologist who maybe only has one initial evaluation that they're working on, but they may have 7 or 8 reevals that are also due within the same 2 weeks of that initial. And you also have to consider whether or not the student is present for the assessments or the testing, or the length of assessments or testing over the course of that evaluation timeframe for you to be able to get enough information to make a solid recommendation. And that doesn't always happen. So if you think about like winter break, where we lose 2 weeks of school, that's going to shift and change the timeline significantly. Or if you have a student who's struggling to attend school, or there's a situation where the student isn't being presented for the evaluation services, like that can all impact timing.
Another through line I'm seeing in this is education of staff and families and community members. And that gets back to staffing, not just having enough staff to communicate with the family members to continue that education, but also having enough staff to allow other staff to be pulled out of their current work so that they can get the education necessary.
Well, and it's also looking at like how much are we asking them to teach? So like when I was a special education teacher, I specialized in social, emotional, and behavioral supports. Like those were the students that I specialized with. I had a whole resource team. Like we had a teacher who taught math. We had a teacher who taught writing and a teacher who taught reading. We had a whole teacher who would just do our assessments for our data and our IEPs. Our teams don't have that. So not only are you expected to be an expert in behavioral, supports, but you're also expected to understand the intensive supports, which is a whole different skill set. You can put me in an EBD room and those kids will do great. You put me in an intensive support room, you're going to want a different teacher. that's the same thing for academics. I can't teach a kid to read as well as I can teach them social skills. And when we are asking teachers to teach, I mean, a special ed teacher, if you include the grade levels across the grade spans that they're teaching, we're asking them to teach essentially anywhere from 18 to 20 classes in a day. Because it's not just the individual subject areas, but it's also the individual grade level areas. And then you weave into that the individual education programs that have the specially designed instruction. And you easily have a teacher with maybe 2 paras teaching 20 classes in one day.
And I want to add that that is a systemic challenge. That is
not a South Whitby thing.
Yeah,
that is everywhere.
right. It's how staffing and funding is allocated. It's large district versus smaller district. There's lots of factors in that. And so even in a large district, in a small elementary school, you're going to have a resource teacher that has to do all of those things. So I want that to be known. Students, do you have anything you want to add? Our student reps? Okay. Okay. It is. Yep.
Yeah, I was then just going to ask if the two of you are ready to open this up.
Yeah.
For those who are online or watching it later online, we do need them mic'd up.
So a couple things. I'm thrilled that this conversation's happening. I didn't realize it had been 5 years I was asking for the SPED Ed committee to start back up. So I'm thrilled that we're having this conversation. I hear a lot of points that this is what a lot of other districts are doing, and these are other challenges other districts are doing, and this is very similar to other districts. If we could stay focused on our district, that would be awesome. I look through this list and I see a lot of the things I struggled with. My kiddo is now in the 9th grade, and I see a lot of these concerns and questions, and it just breaks my heart because I was right there. I had these same issues, these same challenges as a parent. Where to understand my students' rights. PAVE was a huge, huge element in my world. I learned a lot around students' rights, around education. Services for time length. A lot of confusion is, do I need a diagnosis first before I work with the district? Do I need to wait on that? What does that look like? Diagnosis in this area can take a lifetime in itself. A lot of the concerns I see here are more lack of communication, which is very district-wide issue, not just in the SPED Ed. And so I'm thrilled to hear that the SPED Ed committee is happening. These conversations are happening. We get individual messages for sports related and other academia, but it would be great if the SPED Ed community and guardians would have their own kind of communication source. That would be huge through the district, because it would have been really nice to have one, community resources given, to be able to reach out to other families. SPED Ed committee was not in place when we started in this district with my kiddo. There was so many elements that could have improved our experience and our support. So I guess my bottom line is, what are we going to do? I want this conversation to continue because I think we've got a lot of good knowledge in this room, and we have a lot of ability, but it's going to take effort, not just a lot of words, and putting knowledge into action, not just having head knowledge, but actually putting it into action. So I'm excited about this, but also sad at the same time to read this. So thank you.
So I want to, pardon me, I'd like to acknowledge what Ms. Jackson said here earlier. And I think it's really important. And that is, if you serve the SPED committee, all boats rise. And I'll just point to one specific thing. And I'm sure some people have chills when I say it. And that is, when you screen for dyslexia, you're not just screening SPED children, you're screening all the children. And there's a perfect example, I think, of when you actually screen and you screen correctly and you identify that and you get back with the parents and the parents get a diagnosis so you can move forward with that all the boats rise. It's not just the SPED kids, okay? And too many times things like dyslexia are put into the SPED realm. Okay. And it's not, it's 15 or what is it, 10 to 25% of the population is dyslexic. The other is communication. I would challenge most people to actually, if they haven't read an IEP, to sit down and read an IEP, read the goals, and diagram that run-on ridiculous sentence, okay, that describes what a child's supposed to do. I think that's ridiculous. I've read more than one prior written notice that has more double and triple negatives in it that I have to sit down and actually try to figure out where it's at. There's things that can be done, I think quickly, to actually just improve the ability to see what is on an IEP, okay? Third, to go to Ms. Downs' point of the workload of people and what people are working on and single students, et cetera, that everyone needs to understand students aren't static, okay? That the minute something goes on and some child goes to Seattle Children's and talks to an SLP, they could end up with 2 or 3 different new diagnoses that have to be addressed. And as those increase and move forward, you could end up with dyslexia and dysgraphia. You could end up with some other ADHD component. And so a single student in that system cannot be considered static. So it's not a comment or a criticism. I'm trying to support what Ms. Downs said in her statement and actually amplify that a significant amount more. So I think there is a lot of room for improvement here. And I do like the school district as a whole, but I think there are things that need to be done to help it. And I appreciate your listening.
Yeah, Tom Walker, Langley, and just a question. Early in the presentation, there was a chart that showed the district overperforming in relation to the average, overperforming, and the last year, most recent year, a drop. I want to say it's graduation rates, but I'm not sure. So just what's up with that?
Thank you. That was a question I wanted to ask as well.
So on the chart for graduation, it was lower, I think 60%, but you have to realize that's a 4-year cohort. So what that means is students who graduated in 4 years. And in a lot of cases, especially at the high school level, we have small numbers of students, obviously, that graduate, about 100 every year. So what happens is if we have a bubble of life skills students, that year, I believe we had 3 or 4, maybe 5 life skills students who were there for 4 years, did not officially complete because they can be there till they're 22. So they continue going to school and doing the transition program. So that's the main reason that bubble's there for 60%.
Any other questions from folks here in the or thoughts or comments from people in person? We're going to get there. I just want to make sure. Is there anybody online that had any comments or questions?
I think just one of the sticky notes that I wrote on my laptop, because I can't get to down there, was I think when we think of the post-school outcomes and the graduation rates, because of exactly what Mr. Patton shared, because each individual student is going to have an individual education plan, they're going to have different levels of abilities, their metric of success would be considered different. I think it's important that we wouldn't look necessarily at each individual year, but we want to look at the trend line overall to determine kind of the overall district health with those students, because you may have a bubble of students who are going to take more than 5 years to graduate, and that's going to significantly drop your rate for 1 year. Or with the post-student outcomes survey, you might have a high degree. Oftentimes students with disabilities are also experiencing other situations such as homelessness, or they may double qualify as McKinney-Vento and also special ed. So you might have a higher percentage of students that don't maintain phone numbers that you can contact them through, or you're not able to get in touch with them. And so thinking of what is the trend line versus the individual year response.
And reinforcing that, if with a graduating class of 100, we're talking 14 to 16 students. So if 1 or 2 fewer does the thing that we're measuring, it's going to have a major impact. So as Director Downs was saying, looking at the trend lines makes a lot of sense.
And then, I was just wondering, sorry, my voice is gone, but have we gathered feedback like this in the past? Like, was there one of these last year? And then I was just wondering, was there an overlap between the feedback we got and have we done anything to improve like what we saw last year? And is it still on this paper?
I have to look to the board because I wasn't here during that time. And if there was, which it sounds like there is, we can cross-reference.
So we previously did a lot of work around special education. It would have been my first term. That was when we actually started the CEE data. It was specifically to do a program review of special education, and then we've added other components. I think that I have worked hard as a board member to keep special ed at the center. That's part of why our district goals have been centered on universal design for learning. The elementary school was part of the inclusive, I can't remember the project, and it was like the inclusive project.
Practices project. Pilot.
Yes. And that's actually what we see as the result is our increased levels of students being primarily served in general education settings. That's a direct impact of our district participating in that pilot study and working with our ESD partners and our OSPI partners with that. I don't know that we have named special ed as a focal point the way that we did since my first term. As we're kind of bringing it back to now. And I think that that's a good thing that we're doing that, but it hasn't lost its piece. It's just trying, as we consider the district, we're trying to make it special. It can oftentimes get put to the side as something separate. And it was a really intentional conversation and focus of trying to bring it as part of the whole.
There was a meeting similar to this, I think it was 2 years ago, but much less formal. I don't know that there was a formal note sheet spread out like this from it. I don't remember. So yeah. So that would be a good thing to compare to if we can get those notes out. That's a very good idea.
We will find those notes. That was a great question. Okay.
In the vault, that we call it. Yes, they're there. Gwendy, thank you for your question. What's next? We have a few things that includes all of us and then some work as a district. The first one is moving forward, creating a special education advisory council. This is a collaborative approach that a school and parent can't do alone. Family members, community members, students, staff, people with a vested interest in supporting that. I think you know that this job is really hard, and if our teachers didn't love those kids, they wouldn't be here. We know that. So they have a lot of love and a lot of commitment to our students in order to help give them better outcomes. So we're looking at creating, for the purpose, collaboration with district staff to provide input to better understand what we can do just to enhance the understanding of it and to maximize its impact. Participants, individuals who have a genuine interest in this for constructive collaboration. And then the commitment, at least 4 times throughout the school year. This is the inaugural year, so we're going to start in January and then through a continuation so that it can self-sustain itself. Okay, next slide, but that's me. We have a program review or overview. So we're working with an outside consultant to come in and kind of that 30,000-foot view. And when we're here at we're at ground level, we're in it. It's really hard to look up and see what we can do and what is effective and what needs our attention. So we'll have somebody coming in to look at a comparison to similar sized districts, unpack our data and programs to inform us about systems, our infrastructure, staffing, how we utilize staff, inclusion. We're always looking for more inclusive opportunities. So explore that across grade spans, whether it's TK or up into the high school. A mix of a bunch of different data, interview, and site visits, as well as working with those that are willing to jump on board with us with our advisory council. And then they will give us recommendations, a report to inform work and tangible steps over the next 3 years. So that's another big project coming our way.
And I want to be really clear. We asked for year 1 and know that this is not work. This is work that doesn't it doesn't get fixed overnight. If it did, we would have the golden ticket and every district would be working with us. But we want to make sure that we know what is our first steps that were happening next year that we're going to take. We're doing things right now. And when we do that advisory council, we will take some action, tangible action that we can take this year. And part of it is doing this program review, but also the review will give us some very specific next steps for next year and 2 years out and 3 years out, and kind of say, if you prioritize, this is how you would prioritize that work. And so we're looking forward to this. And Ms. Phillips, you communicated with the team, and the team seems to be excited about this.
Yeah, the special ed staff was really excited to have somebody come in and share with them and affirm the things that are going well and give them feedback so that we can be more efficient and supportive of our students and families. Yeah.
I like the, I like the intention not just to look at what can we fix tomorrow, because I know that y'all are looking at that and working on what needs to be fixed tomorrow, but also looking at the structural things that are this year and next year and 3 years. So thank you.
And that is our presentation. We hope that was helpful and gave you a global insight into what special ed programming looks like in the district, and a little bit about our demographic information and our work and next steps. Thank you all. I'm gonna head back up here.
So
Yeah.
let's get a mic real quick.
Is this advisory group separate from the committee, or is it the same thing?
The program review group. The two things. This is the same thing. This is one and the same thing, a special ed advisory council. Yep. And we're naming that instead of committee because the state has a state special ed advisory council. So we're modeling after that, and many districts have a special ed advisory council. So it is one and the same. Yep. Are there any other questions? Okay.
Still nothing online.
Thank you. Perfect.
I would also like to thank you both very much, and for the community members who chimed in and shared your experiences as well, both during the meeting and here tonight. I would like to make sure that we as a board focus on what the board can do to support our administrators in this effort, whether that is shifting pillars within goals, whether that is looking at the budget for this year or next year, whether that is looking at policies. So I want to make sure that as we go forward, we are focusing, we up on the behind the table here are focusing on what we can do to support them.
I think the program review will give us a lot of information on that. So I
Yes.
think it would be helpful if we just held steady until we had information from people grounded in the review.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting we change things next meeting. I'm just saying that a reminder for us to keep our minds on what we can do to support our administrators doing what they can do. Okay, that is the conclusion of our workshop format. We'll now move back into the business meeting. The next item there is the consent agenda. Are there any objections to approving the consent agenda as presented, including the Southby High School Jazz Band field trip to the Kiwanis Jazz Festival? Hearing none, the consent agenda is approved. One of our presentations needs to be postponed because the person who was giving it is unable to attend. So we will move directly to the student board members report. Student representatives.
Okay, so in the high school, fall sports have wrapped up. There was a great season for all of our teams, especially great for cross country, where one runner placed first in state for girls and one runner placed third in state for boys. So that's just amazing. Winter sports are starting up now. And then the high school AP Lit class went on a field trip to Nancy Pearl's book recommendation talk. And it was very, very enlightening and just super interesting. And we got to talk to her. I don't know. It was really cool. Pep band is starting up for basketball soon. The Creepy concert was at the end of last month, and I got to attend, and it was really great to see all the bands perform. NHS is having their warm clothing drive through December and up to winter break. And then it's the end of first quarter for students, and the end of first quarter, students are in the swing of things, and I think they're getting excited to have a couple days off next week. At the middle school, Cougar Pride Awards and celebrations have begun. Staff are nominating students and celebrations are weekly. Cougars celebrated the end of first quarter with a harvest hangout last month, and it included many activities and games for students to participate in. Southwood Middle School students rotate electives at the quarter, starting up our drama, health, ceramics, and study skills. ASB is hosting a dress-up days this week in anticipation for their week off. One dress-up day is dress like a teacher. Next week are conferences for the middle school, and their winter sports ones have also started with boys basketball and girls soccer. At the elementary school, the Scholastic Book Fair will be held the first week in December, and it's a really amazing fundraiser for school libraries. ASB students created a slideshow and presented them to the preschool through second grade classrooms to teach younger students about Veterans Day this year, and organized a reception with cake and coffee for all veterans, and over 20 veterans attended. And then the annual Veterans Day Assembly was after the reception, and the elementary school singing club did an amazing job of singing a wide range of patriotic songs.
Thank you very much.
I think one thing to just add on to your piece about the book fair is that we always have a fund where people can donate to students who might not have the funds to get something from the book fair. And Ms. Coda, who would they reach out to about adding money to that book fair fund?
Voice is also gone. Probably Val Brown.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if anybody wants to load that fund so that every kid who goes through the book fair can get something that always exists.
I just wanted to note that I can't believe I haven't thought of this previously, but I know that student-led conferences are a huge thing at the middle and high school, and I'd love to hear more about them next month, since my kid is getting close to the point where she'll start leading some of those. And I think it'd be good for the board and the community to hear a little bit more about that. So that might be something for the next report. Other comments or questions for our student representatives? Okay. Thank you very much, both of you. We'll move on to public comments. Ms. Macaro. Okay. Yeah, we can just talk.
Charlene Davenport Clinton. My comments tonight are specifically directed to our student director. Last Friday, I went to the climate rally and was impressed by the number of students there. The highlight for me were the speeches of these future leaders. 2 weeks ago, I read something that touches on some of the thoughts our students mentioned. I'm going to quote Dr. Randy Woodley, retired professor, educator, and descendant of the Cherokee Nation. I have an indigenous friend who is a professor and an expert on the Mayan calendar system. The Mayan calendar predates the Gregorian calendar, which is in wider use today. According to some experts, the Mayan calendar is more accurate. While popular belief held that the Mayan calendar had predicted the end of the world on December 21st, 2012, my friend showed me that the actual date was 2013. And she clarified that although the calendar suggested that chaos and imbalance would reign, it wasn't signifying the end of the world. Rather, the Mayans issued a dire warning that we have just a few short years to bring the world back into harmony and balance where peace reigns. The alternative is perpetual pandemonium. If we could look at Western Europe as it was about 500 years ago, we could observe many of the phenomena we are experiencing today. Wildfires, hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, droughts. Hardwood forests were being depleted to make castles, cathedrals, and fortresses, and to fuel fires hot enough to forge iron tools and weapons. The bays and rivers were overfished and polluted. Disease was rampant. Water was largely undrinkable. When comparing the problems of Europe 500 years ago to America now, there are striking similarities. We should ask ourselves, what is the common thread between then and now? What caused the world to spin out of balance then, and the same culprit that is causing our current disarray, the Western worldview. Western civilization has developed a mechanistic view of nature that is non-relational, competitive, and based on imperial expansion. After more than 500 years, you'd think Western society would have learned the lessons the Earth had to teach. We only have one Earth. We may only have a few years left to learn a different way of thinking and living. The Mayans were telling us nothing new. Indigenous people have learned through millennia of observation, trial and error, a healthy way to live with each other on the earth without destroying it. Through my reading, I have learned the Native Americans carefully look at the past and learn from it to be better stewards of the earth. They also look to the future when making decisions that will impact the next 7 generations of all life on Earth. I wondered about the timeline for 7 generations. So I went to my files and found I could trace 7 generations for one grandfather. With me as a 7th generation, I went back 250 years to the ancestor who would have looked forward to the next 7 generations. I have no doubt that our students will be the future leaders of our country. As you students take up the mantle of leadership, always look to the past and learn from it, and make decisions about the planet by looking forward 7 generations. But right now, you must keep speaking up, spreading the 2,000-year-old dire warning from the Mayans. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that perspective.
Gwenny Gameline Freeland. All right, so we survived the election. Quite a bit of things came out of the election. I was going to talk about something else tonight, but you all kind of focused on the concept of community. One huge aspect that came out of the election was finally we've determined that the Q&As for the bond, the gender neutral bathrooms were not discussed. We also determined that there was one person on the committee that was a community member. We also determined that it wasn't discussed at the board meetings. But what was even more disappointing was there was a lot of talking phrases that we got community input, that the community was part of this conversation, that the community gave their opinion on this. When? Not at the Q&A, not at board meetings. When? So the election's over. We don't have to save face anymore. So let's have those conversations. The buildings are not completed. There was an article that the Record put out, and you were quoted to say the items circulating were illustration purposes only. Those were permits. They're pending approval in Island County. So we have the drawings. So let's look at that and have a conversation what that looks like. The reason why I bring that up was another element that was stated in that article was that we were not going to do single door entrance because it was going to be safer. I've seen the blueprints. They're single door entrance. I would love the idea of the open concept where the wash basin is open so people can see, and it would be a safer type of bathroom. I completely agree, but that's not what the blueprints represent or show. And then the other thing was on there was, and we did this just now as Sped Ed, we compare ourselves to other districts. And in that article, you had stated that it's being done at Coupeville and Oak Harbor. Coupeville has one toilet, one bathroom, one door. Very different than what the blueprints represent. So we've made up a lot of information. We spread out a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of people supporting the idea, thinking that we had this open concept, thinking that the community had a chance to give their opinion and be part of the conversation for something that affects the whole district. So I really challenge you guys to actually do that, to actually allow the community to have their input. You did have a kind of a coffee moment recently, but then we found out that the information given was not accurate. That seems to be a very continuous thing. Information was not accurate. You came forward and said, I apologize, I misspoke. That's happened a lot. So there's a lot of misinformation, there's a lot of misspeaking, and there's still a lack of community input. So it's a new day. You have the opportunity to have that conversation. You said voice for all. There's a petition going around that has 400 signatures. Is it a voice for all or just the ones that agree with your agenda? Just wondering. Because it should be a voice for all because it's a whole district because it affects everyone. The building's not done yet, as sense in the bathroom. So the conversation still can happen if you want it to. If you want to continue to ignore the community, that's your decision. You're the board. You're the superintendent. I'd really encourage you to have that conversation. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your perspective. And that concludes our public comment for the evening. I have nothing here from online. So we'll move on to new business. We have 2 items on the agenda for new business. The first is Memorandum 252607, approval of the 25 through 27 PSE collective bargaining agreement. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Clifford for an overview of that.
Hold on one moment. I am actually in a moment going to hand it over to Mr. Field. But I first want to thank Mr. Field, our district the district staff members that have participated in the bargaining. And then I also want to thank so much the entire bargaining participants. And so I'm going to name them. We had PSE, so Joanne Welver, Deanne Hook, please correct me because Hauk, Carly Hudson, Teresa Ogden, Dana Whitney, and from SEIU we had Leo Langer, Darren Merritt, Jeremy Canty, Terry McKillop, and Patty Donegan. And this negotiations and making sure that we are working towards a good working conditions for staff and making sure that we can find that right balance of addressing our staff's needs and making sure that we are supporting our students while maintaining fiscal integrity is a really important and delicate balance. And I really just want to thank all of those and especially thank Mr. Fields for his intentional dedication and hard work. They spent a lot of time getting to this outcome, and I'm very proud of the collective team for where we are and where we're going to move forward. Mr. Field, go ahead and take it away.
I don't have much else to add. I'd appreciate the teams that worked with us to get this done. It's a 2-year deal for both parties, and looking forward to moving forward.
Thank you all who participated and those of you who led it and were engaged in the discussions and negotiations. I know that those are never easy, but I'm glad that we've been able to come to a tentative agreement at this point that satisfies the main desires of both sides, because that's always the balance of finding the main desires and satisfying those. Are there any other comments or questions or debate from the board on this item? Okay. Student representatives, may we have your advisory votes on this memorandum?
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. All those in favor of approving Memorandum 252607, approval of the 25 through 27 PSE collective bargaining agreement, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. The memorandum passes. The second item on our new business is Memorandum 252608, approval of the 2527 SEIU collective bargaining agreement. This is the same agreement with our other classified union. And the same thanks go out to all involved for reaching a solid midpoint. Any comments, questions, debate, or discussion from the board? Student representatives, could we have your advisory votes?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All those in favor of approving Memorandum 252608, approval of the 2527 SEIU collective bargaining agreement, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, please say nay. The memorandum has passed. That concludes our new business. We move on to reports, and we turn first to financial and enrollment report with Mr. Field.
So this is our enrollment for November. Steve's going to run it for me. Thank you. So we're still 108 students FTE over budget. So the kids that we saw at the beginning of the year are sticking around. So that's good news. The next graph here where the orange line last year is the green line. So again, this is showing that space between where we are. We always seem to have a little bit of a dip between October and November. So nothing really to be worried about there. It's just what happens. This is the same information, just in a bar graph format. Please recognize that it starts at 1050 and then there's the gap. So same information, 1,211 FTE. This one I want to spend a second on. So this is by grade level and the current year is in orange. So if you look at the 24-25 kindergarten number, 6347, and then follow that diagonally to the next year, it jumps from 63 to 75. And first grade jumps from 76 to 84.4. So when you look at this graph running across, we're gaining students across all grade bands, specifically in K3. And when we get into the financial side of things, you'll see our payroll cost higher because we knew folks were coming in. So we hired our K3 compliance specialists and we've added staff to help supplement those grades. We've supplemented grades in 5th grade. And you can see that too. So the 4th grade class at 7842 jumped to 87 students in 5th grade. So we picked up kids across all bands and we've added staff to accommodate those class sizes through the year. So when we get to the financial side, you'll see salary costs looking higher than prior year. That is the main reason why. We're still working towards adding staff at the middle school. We have a position out. I don't know if it's been hired 100% yet, but to help accommodate our 6th, 7th, 8th growth, we're adding more staffing there to help with the class loads to accommodate this 100 extra kids over budget. And this is just showing budget to actual by grade. So again, just showing basically across all grade bands were greater. And the 11th grade classes, we go back one, Christy, oh, sorry.
Hey, Paul, before
Yes.
we move past that, do we know where we picked the majority of those kids up off?
We haven't. I need to dive into that more to see what classes they came from.
Yeah.
It's been a busy month with the bidding
fair.
and stuff this year or this
That's
month
fair.
for the construction stuff.
It like sometimes when we would have increases in enrollment, it would be like a bubble in one spot or something like that. It would be like, oh, such and such shifted program or something like that. But it seems consistent across the grade levels, and it's a large amount across the grade levels.
Yeah.
So
So I wanted to back up for this one for just a second, because when you look at the 10th grade class, that 95.15 and 24-25 and how it drops to 76, that class has been a little bit small comparatively. So it's not really an unusual change, because when we go from 10th to 11th grade, we have a number of students jump into running start. So it's a little bit of an anomaly that the 11th grade class is low, but it's a small class to begin with. So now that should not say August 31st. That's a mistake on my part. So here's our dials that we kind of look at. So we're 17% through the year. I have nearly 19% of our revenue for the year, and our expenditures to date is 15.8%. The dials on the bottom show all of our expenditures, including encumbrances. So POs that we've issued, and payroll looks at 98.5 it's how much we the value of the total contract. So what we've paid in the contracts plus the total value. That's why that one's buried all the way over to 98.5%. So in total, with encumbrances, we're at 88.2% of our expenditures. So we're in a comfortable place. This is typically what it looks like when we bring in our encumbrances, because most of the stuff we can plan for and salaries is over 80% of our budgeted cost.
And Paul, we would anticipate that encumbrance, that those payroll with encumbrances will go over 100% because we picked up over 100 students. So we're going to add staffing, which will increase the amount that we budgeted for. However, the state will adjust for the increase in enrollment in February, March, January, February. And so even though those dials are going to go past 100, it's because it's based on the projections you put out last April.
Correct.
So
And then
we anticipate that that's not in any way, shape, or form miscalculation on your end.
So when we get into later in the year, we should see the same thing happen in that revenue dial, that it's going to go past 100% because we're going to have more apportionment than I budgeted, because we effectively budgeted a slight decrease or nearly flat enrollment, but slightly decreased, and we have 100 students more than we budgeted. So we're accommodating that with hiring staff early. We knew right away that's when we were going to need it for K-3 compliance. So we got that started early, and we continue to add staff to adjust class sizes. So that is correct. So this is one of our graphs we use all the time, which is just showing our revenue and our expenditures for our 2-year comparison. It's really following the trend. This is just our monthly revenue. We can pause here for a second, see how neatly our revenue comes in, because when we flip over and go over to expenditures, it's not nearly as tidy. Revenue by state. So the state general apportionment we get goes up every year as the state gives us an implicit price deflator. So they increase it, and as our enrollment changes, that will continue to go up. Local taxes, same thing as our number of students enrolls increases the amount that we can collect with our levies. State special purpose is largely our special ed funding and some other LAP programs and things of that nature. Again, increasing with our implicit price deflator. Federal funding has decreased significantly because of the ESSER cliff. That's why that's so much lower than historical. And then our local non-taxes, a combination of good interest rates and collections of rental properties that we have. So this is, the next one is our expenditure graph. So not nearly as tidy as the revenue because the timing of when things come in, it just causes it to be very sporadic. Specifically in MSOCs, from the timing when we pay insurance, utilities are pretty consistent. We have something that breaks and we have to pay for it out of the maintenance and things. It just, expenditures for MSOCs come as they come, and we pay it as we need to. Salaries, on the other hand, is a little more consistent. Once the contracts are set and people are hired, we typically follow this sort of a band, and at the end of the year is adjustments are made, stipends are finalized. It kind of can jump around from time to time. So this is the graph I wanted to point out, is the certificated salaries are so much higher than prior year because we've hired staff earlier than we did last year because we could see that the kids are coming. So we got the staff in the door early, so we're not having these mid-year ads. We started the year with more staff than we did last year. And this is our fund balance graph. It's hard to see our current number because it's basically laying on top of the light blue number. So we're sitting at 24.83% budget to fund balance ratio. This is the statutory required budget status report.
Paul, before you dive past the fund balance, I just wanted, could you remind me what the state standard is for fund balance percentage?
State hasn't set one, but there is a lot of conversation right now requiring a minimum and maximum fund balance.
Mm-hmm.
They recommend like 1/12 is a healthy spot to cover 1 month's payroll, but large districts like North Shore, I got off a call within the day, are in like just above 2, and having to make loans from payroll or loans from their capital fund to pay payroll in June and July because have apportionment falls. So for a small district, in my opinion, 20% is not unusual. It's one bad
Well-
accident away from using that.
I think it
stuff.
would be considered not unhealthy, but I do think it would be unusual for a small district to have a 20% fund balance in a positive way.
In a positive way, yeah. It's
Yeah.
not for smaller districts to have a larger fund balances. They just don't have as much room. Because yes, it's a large percentage, but a dollar amount it's not a large dollar amount.
I do want to add to that. One of the reasons why this is important for small districts is because if you have one pretty significant thing that is unexpected, whether it's a big student service need or a big unexpected utility need, smaller districts have difficulty absorbing that because of the budget compared to larger districts. So having a healthy fund balance to be able to respond to unanticipated, big significant needs is really critical.
Paul, could you go back just a couple of slides to, yes, this one. I noticed a pretty significant uptick in services. Could you address?
The timing of our insurance payment, we paid it a month later
Got it.
last year.
Thank you.
Yeah. So this next slide is one that's not typically in here, but this is showing our bond expenditure for the entire life of the bond. The capital fund is different because they make you budget it for a year, but our capital project is going to take over close to 4 years to get done. So the green line is our fund balance, and those big jumps in the fund balance in the capital side is the sale of the bonds. The red line is the expenditure to date. And with that comment, our construction company is a little behind in invoicing us for their work because they're prioritizing getting the bids done and signing their new contracts for the resolution that we approved at the special board meeting, getting their subcontractors on board, really gearing up for the second phase of work. I say second phase, but it's all running congruently. So I will continue to update this and look at other ways to bring in how we're doing with the spend. This is on the fly is what I came up with as I was preparing this month's report to kind of show and then have an opportunity to answer questions related to the capital project as we're going. In big news tomorrow here, the playground is going to be 100% opened at 11 o'clock. So they're taking down the fencing and have some extra supervision for the playground as the kids get used to the new toys. But yeah, took a little bit longer due to permitting and the county tying our drainage permit to both structures instead of one. So we needed to wait for both of them to get released before we turned them loose. So things are progressing as we continue to work on our structures. This is our other fund activity. Some new activity in debt service. So we had our October collection, and now that we have a bond, we're collecting to pay it. So we don't typically see activity in the debt service fund for the last 10 or 15 years. With ASB, I want to give a shout out to the ASB secretary at the high school, Kimmy Johnson. We implemented InTouch receipting this year, which has allowed the district to start taking credit card transactions. And it's helped in a lot of ways. Because people just don't carry cash or checks a lot anymore. And the system interfaces with our library system. So as parents are coming up to pay for ASB cards and yearbooks and things like that, the system also says like, hey, you also have a library fine, or you're missing a book, or this, that, and the other. It's really helped our collection in the moment to have that information. As we ease our way into it more, we'll start using it for donation sites as ASB clubs and teams are doing fundraisers this system allows us to create a donation website. So family members, grandma can go in and give money to the band or whatever it is without having to do a bunch of other stuff. And it just takes the receipting aspect out of the office. And then we just get credit card clearing just like a grocery store or anything else.
Paul, are the students still managing the accounts? When they came last year and they were showing how they do the line item transfers and things. Are they still doing that?
Yes, it's a great activity. It is very time consuming for me though.
I'm sure it is.
Yeah, but it's no, they are. So we pushed all the money back I need to get back with the new treasurer. I need to make time to get together with them and the ASB team to be like, is it still the plan? But I pushed out a bunch of $100 amounts to the clubs. They gave all of their sports teams like $5 per member of the team to get $5 to pizza party or whatever. So those have been coming through and we've been pushing those out. But with the overall plan right now, I think they're staying in the course. Again, with Kimmy's guidance of, hey, we need to do these things. They're looking to make some moves towards sinking funds for uniform replacement. So making accounts where they can split things out like that. But yes, they are absolutely still well engaged. Don't let their accounts go negative and make sure they're moving the money around. With that, that's all I had tonight.
Questions or comments from the board? In a shaking head from Director Greenherron as well. Thank you very much, Mr. Field. We'll now move on to our superintendent's report. Dr. Clifford.
Thank you. And I don't have my clicker up here, so thanks, Christy, or Ms. McCara. Again, we always have our board goals, our district goals, grounding our work. And if you can go to the next slide, please. There's been a lot of progress made, and a lot of the areas are kind of ongoing, so I didn't turn it green, but I did want to highlight that these are two sections on my entry plan that I feel that I was able to feel confident that I can say that I've completed, but it will still be ongoing work. And so some of the things you'll note that will be noting ongoing because some of the work is going to be ongoing. The next I think there's been so much, and our student reps already shared so many things. But one of the things that I've started, I was in classrooms and got into all the classrooms. And now I've been doing individual meet and greets with staff. And so far I've met with 21 staff in the last few weeks. And I am working on trying to meet and greet as many as I can to get to know them and have them have an opportunity to share and get to know me. This happens to be, I also got to shared some academic pieces. It was really not it was just really about getting to know each other, but sharing some celebrations. And this happened to be an example of how students were sharing about their book using a drawing and paper. And it's something that was modeled after a middle school, but a one-pager. So it's also kind of showing that alignment from elementary to middle school. So that was nice. That happened to be with one of our new fifth grade teachers. As our student reps mentioned, I just wanted to acknowledge our veterans and thank them for their service. And there were many activities and events, and so I wanted to highlight that. Today, I was able to, with Mr. Patton and Ms. Phillips, meet with our middle school and high school students that were identified by their advisors as student leaders that will help to support the implementation of our equity work, Speak Up at Schools. We did the training in September, and I think that they all seemed pretty excited. What do you think? You were there.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be good, and I think it's gonna help with just like the confidence and like the ability to know what to do in what situation. And I think that's really needed. So I think that's gonna be good.
Thank you. Excellent. And then there was just so many events and activities. I thoroughly enjoyed the Harvest Hangout, the Harvest, the costume parade at the elementary school. Got to go down to downtown Langley and get to really just get involved in our community spirit around the Halloween holiday. Then came back to watch our football game for the senior night. So I tried to get to all the senior nights if I could. It was really cold that night, so I bought the cheerleaders hot coffee or hot chocolate, not coffee, hot chocolate, and tried to be subtle about it. But they got a picture with me, so wanted to add that. The bottom picture here under the cheer team is our newest fifth grade teacher who started a few weeks ago, Carrie McNaught. She had a family night this past week on Thursday and did pizza, and it was a huge thing because we want to make sure that our students, we had a few fifth grade students that had to move, and so we wanted the families to get an opportunity to get to know her, and because it was past curriculum night or open house night. and for the students to get to showcase their work. And it was a lovely, lovely, lovely evening. And then, of course, the Harvest Fest. We took a little selfie. So I had to share that. Sorry. But so many events and activities, and I'm just really enjoying. And we also had the special ed. I didn't want to add that here because we had a whole section on that. So I'm just really appreciative of our administrators and our staff and the students for all that they're doing, and then the families and community for how they're wrapping around and showing up and just being partnering in this work. There's so many people, so many thank yous that I could give to make this, that made all of these things happen. But very incredible school spirit and events in the community and within our schools and in the community. All right. And then the next one, I just wanted to do a highlight of professional development, because we started our professional development, really launched it this month. Last month, we really did the, again, the Speak Up at Schools training. But Mrs. Phillips shared about the life space crisis intervention training and about the tier 3 training, but we're also doing the tier for everybody, tier 1, to support social, emotional, and behavioral responses and proactively planning for our classroom environments and in our school environments to support and respond to students. And so this shows we had a team at the elementary school and a team at the high school, middle school. They spent the day visiting classrooms to kind of get to see what was happening, and then had some tailored professional development. And they're going to do this for multiple days. And so we're really grateful for this and have got very positive feedback from staff. And then mathematical practices. Today, I wasn't able to get to the elementary school, but Tina Mott from the Northwest ESD is also coming in and doing math training at the elementary school. And so she spent the day in classes and then did training at the end of the day. And she's also going to be coming in for a couple of sessions with them. And we've had staff that also went to the Northwest ESD, about 6 staff members at the elementary school, so that they could participate in the math fluency training. And that's a couple of sessions. So just wanted to highlight that we are delivering on the plans that we talked about in the SIPs and wanted to, as school improvement plans, and wanted to show how that's coming to life. The last thing is, and I'm not going to say more, but last thing is just the construction. We are about to start our next projects. And so this is just simply a reuse of a slide from last one. Next December, in December, we'll have more details of the next steps in the projects. Do you want to add?
I was gonna say, we're starting to come inside now. We're just got a bunch of stuff moved out of the metal shop. We have the locker rooms cleared out so they can start coming in to get into those locker rooms, the PE locker rooms specifically. So there's still the outside work, which was the phase 1 bid, is continuing around the exterior of the building. It's all weather tight now, so that plastic covering is going to be removed because it's weather tight, but they're actively layering bricks every single day for part of the veneer exterior. Metal siding should be showing up relatively soon. But the second phase of work was a lot that we just got done bidding, is starting to move inside, starting in that metal shop space and those locker rooms. So yeah, it's continuing to move along.
And you all, I didn't do a picture or anything, but I just want to acknowledge the Board of Distinction and the great work and the dedication and the hard effort that you put in each and every day to really support and lead and create. Oh, I meant to delete this. Create the conditions for us to do the work that we need to do to support students. There's going to be an email coming out at the middle and high school. We've got an influx of younger students drinking energy drinks. So no energy drinks. Stop. Don't have students. They don't need energy drinks. It's not healthy for them. So that was just a reminder to please don't do energy. Just remind your students that there are other more healthier drinks that they can have to boost their energy. But Board of Distinction, and then Director Greenhair also got a nod, and I'm going to let you celebrate that during your board comments.
Thank you very much. We will now move on to board comments and reports.
I would just like to make a comment that I think might dispel some myths that have been circulating around the community. I wanted to restate some information that was shared by Dr. Clifford and our administration. We have finalized restroom design and layout in the sense that we know that multi-stall restrooms will have floor-to-ceiling stall partitions for privacy and safety. We know that this decision is final and it was included in the permit application. We also know that restroom labeling is not yet finalized, but there will be a mix of male assigned, female assigned, and all gender multi-stall restrooms. And these will be accessible from multiple parts of the building on every floor. So what we're really doing is data informed, student safety first, facilities designed for modern schools. And I just want to commend our administration for that work. I also participated in the Bond Construction Advisory Committee. It represented a wide cross-section of our community, including the people who are going to be using these bathrooms daily, our staff and our students. And so I just want to ask the community to celebrate and support the people who are creating these safe spaces. Thank you.
I had the opportunity during the Halloween parade. There was a little bit of pandemonium at the end of the day while we were waiting for the children to come out. We had the option to go get our kids out of school early. My child declined. So I was able to go tour the playground ahead of time. And I just want to just say how excited I am for this playground. We have been talking about needing to update that playground for as long as I have been on the board, which is close to 10 years now. And the conversations I remember even being just introducing the concept of what an inclusive playground means. And I remember comments in the community being like, well, why do we need an inclusive playground? And they wanted to know whether or not we had students who were in wheelchairs that needed access to that. And the comment was, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what our student body looks like. We need to have a playground that anybody can play at. And we want a playground that will shift and change as our students shift and change. And I anticipate we might have a few more crutches with the top of that climbing deal. Although I do know that the ground is very squishy because I checked it. But I think that having the extra people out on the playground for supervision is a great idea. The playground looks exceptionally fun. And I love the beauty of that playground that I love is that all students, regardless of their mobility needs, will be able to engage in every aspect of that playground, and in no way, shape, or form does it call out their mobility needs, where sometimes when you go to playgrounds, you can tell that students' mobility needs was an afterthought. It's, a swing gets changed out with like the one swing that the one kid can use, or there's a part of the playground that they can't get to or that they can't participate in. And I love that this playground eliminates that barriers. Everybody has the opportunity to engage in it. And it has been 10 years coming, and I am so excited. And it's a bummer that we have to get in the van at 6 a.m. tomorrow, and I will miss it. But
speaking of getting in the van at 6 a.m. tomorrow, the board, including Dr. Clifford and our student representatives, is going to the Washington State School Directors Association annual conference tomorrow, where we get to engage with other school board representatives, other student representatives, other superintendents, other administrators from across the state to learn from each other and discuss the issues that affect all the schools, and so they can find out how we're addressing them, we can find out how they're addressing them, and then bring those ideas and thoughts back to our school and fine tune them for our specific needs. Alongside that, Director Greenherron has been not only on the committee working on this annual conference, which thank you very much for the service there, but was recently elected in a runoff election as the District Area 1 representative. So he will be representing most of Northwest Washington, not on the Olympic Peninsula, but everywhere else, at larger Washington State School Directors Association meetings, which is in fact where he is right now. Thank you for taking the time to be with us virtually, Director Greenherron. And so stepping up to address an opportunity that you saw and a need to get small school voices out there, and addressing one of the goals for the board to advocate upwards and outwards. So thank you very much, Director Greenherron, and congratulations.
Thank you. Yes, that's why I'm remote. I'm in Seattle, and it's an honor to serve at the statewide level. I'm learning a lot, and I will be taking some of the great things we do at the district level to the state level, and then learning a lot of great things that other colleagues are doing to bring back to the district level. Also want to congratulate my colleagues on Board of Distinction Award. Um, it's given out by the Washington State School Directors Association to school boards that demonstrate a systematic approach to excellent board governance through data-driven decision making, a focus on improving student outcomes, and other things such as that. This is the third year in a row our board has received this recognition, and that puts us among only two other small-sized school districts that have been recognized as such the past 3 years in a row. So our work is not yet done. We can continue to have our sleeves rolled up, but we are being recognized for a high-functioning level board. Lastly, I had the opportunity to tour the high school with Dr. Clifford not too long ago. And as always, I'm just super impressed with the passion and dedication of our teachers, the way they're engaging with the students. And also, I had an opportunity to talk with some of the ASB leadership. And I'm also just as impressed with the thoughtfulness and depth at our conversation about what it means to demonstrate leadership, and how that can look in different walks of life. And I got to hear a lot of the things that they're passionate about, and the positive impact they're going to make in the world when they're done with their education. And so I think we will be in good hands with these students. Was very impressed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other board comments or reports? This meeting is adjourned. Good night. Thank you.